Well, for more on the funeral preparations of the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, we're joined by the Asia 1 Pakistan Bureau Chief, Anas Mallick from Mashhad. Anas, thank you so much once again for joining us today. So what is the latest from Mashhad as Iran prepares to lay its late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei to rest at the shrine of Imam Reza?
It's been an eventful day here in Mashhad. The day started off with the funeral prayers being delayed, and not hundreds, not thousands, but millions of people were in participation. It would not be wrong to say. In my covering, in my reportage for good 7-8 years now, this is perhaps the biggest funeral procession I've ever seen. For about 11 to 12 kilometers, it was only people with one intent, marching towards the shrine with the intent of saying a final goodbye to the late Supreme Leader of Iran. People who had flags in their hand, people who had flags of Iran, flags of the countries that they represent, people who had black flags that signified mourning, people that had red flags that signified to avenge, people that had flags of Hezbollah or the accents of resistance as Iran says it, and people who had white flags calling for peace. It was all in all a show of strength, a show of unity put forward by Iran. It was a show that was seen. It was not just religious messaging, but it was beyond that. It was religious, political messaging on the part of Iran, and that has been very well conveyed. Iran, the people of Iran stand united. The people of Iran stand behind their government. The people of Iran stand behind their supreme leader. The people of Iran stand behind their own people, and the people of Iran stand united in the face of any aggression, in the face of any name calling, and that is what Iran has signified today. That is what the people of Iran have conveyed today. What we have seen today are unprecedented scenes. Something I've been here in Iran for over a week now. In Tehran, I covered the funeral in Qom, but I've not seen anything like this. Yes.
And Anas, what's the atmosphere like on the ground? How large are the crowds, and what security and logistical arrangements have been put in place by the authorities?
Well, it was a show of unity, it was a show of strength, it was a show of messaging, and it was a show to ensure that Iran is safe, Iran is secure, and Iran is safe and secure for everyone. Not just for its own people, but for the foreign delegations, for foreigners like me, for foreign media, for over 1,000 foreign media personnel who have been in Iran since the start of the funeral ceremony. That message was very well clearly communicated on the part of Tehran and on the part of Mashhad, on the part of Qom. 100,000 plus security personnel deployed. Latest most air defense systems activated and deployed here in Mashhad. A guard of honor or a fly pass given to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's mortal remains as they flew into Mashhad. We saw Iranian Air Forces escorting him, and why I say the word Air Force is because it's pretty interesting, because US President Donald Trump had been claiming that he has destroyed the Iranian Air Force, but of course that is not just true at all. What we saw today was more than just a show of political or religious messaging, or more than just a show of how they put it as a cult following. It was not the case. What we saw today was a show of strength, unity, diplomatic messaging, and of course a lot of down the line messages, or under the line messages, or between the line messages. And something that Iran has come out very, very clear on is that it refused to be bullied, it refused to be intimidated, and it will continue to stand by its government and the regime of the time, regardless of what the Western analysts or the intelligence assessments say. Yes.
And Anas, we've seen funeral processions across Iran and Iraq over the past week. How significant is today's burial ceremony in bringing those nationwide mourning events to a close?
Well, it is very significant. I'll just get aside for the benefit of our viewers. The road you see to my left, to my right, roads they're still packed, but the number of mourners have considerably reduced. But at one point of time, you couldn't just even move, you couldn't even ought to think about leaving the hotel or the live position or march on the streets. It was that jam-packed, and people came in, people were angry, people came in with one intent. It was that final farewell to the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the third president of Iran, the second supreme leader of Iran, and that is what they have bid. Authorities have told us that in the past 48 hours, 7 million people have made it to Mashhad in the past 48 hours, let alone. Authorities also say that today's turnout was between 15 million to 20 million people flocking the streets of Mashhad and adjoining areas, flocking those streets, flanking them with placards, with flags for the love, or in order to catch a glimpse. And we saw pretty emotional scenes, pretty charged up scenes. So the ceremony that took place today with the burial, it would be now business as usual, or could be perhaps be business as usual in Iran. What is more important is that what happens next. The supreme leader was not there again today, even at the burial of his father, Ayatollah Mujtaba Khamenei. There was sloganeering that was done in his favor, alongside sloganeering done in favor of the late supreme leader, alongside sloganeering that was done against the American side or anti-American, anti-Israel slogans. But broadly speaking, the bigger question is what happens next. One thing that one can say with a lot of certainty is that with this, the leash for the Iranian regime has now been renewed for God knows how many years. All of those assessments on the western part, they have fallen short, they have fallen wrong, they have been proven to be wrong. It would not be wrong to say. And for Iran, this is a leash of life for the regime, and not just for the regime, and it is also a vote of confidence into the government and into its policies, and a show of unity as well. Tom?
And Anas, finally, what message is Iran seeking to send through such a high-profile state funeral?
Well, as I said, it was more to do than just a message. It was a political message, it was a diplomatic message, it was a message of unity, it was a message of strength, it was a message that Iran refuses to be bullied, intimidated. Iran rallies behind its late leader. Remember, for 60% of the Iranian population is 90 million. For 60% of the Iranian population, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the late, was the only Ayatollah that they had seen, was the only supreme leader that they had seen. It was him who they had grown up listening to, it was him who they had grown up reading to, it was him whom they had grown up being in a conflict with, and it was him who they had shown up in numbers, in outpouring numbers, to give a farewell. So in that context, Iran's messaging is very, very clear, and now the fate of the war, the fate of the next course of action is something that will be very, very closely watched out. Yes.
Anas, thank you so much for your input. Appreciate it lots.